Hey, what's up, you guys? It's Bloody Jacob here to bring you my weekly Walking Dead TV series review. And this week's episode was the third episode of Season 5, and it was entitled Four Walls and a Roof. But anyway, after last week's gruesome ending with Bob wandering outside and Gareth and his crew, capturing him and holding him up somewhere. Bob wakes up around a campfire and Gareth, is just talking to him, and it's basically revealed that they cut his leg off and started eating it, fully confirming by the way they're talking and what they're doing as, the cannibals and hunters from the comic books that you've probably heard about if you're a fan of the show, or read the comic books, of course. But, don't mind me fixing my hair there, even though it's still a little weird on top. But, so we kind of start off right at that same point. And I forget the actor's name here, but the guy who played Bob, he did a really good job in this episode. I'll give it to him, because in this first few minutes of the episode, we see Bob basically reveal to Gareth and his boys the termites, that he was bitten on the shoulder. I think it was on the shoulder, actually. And he just pulls it down and shows them and stuff like that. Don't mind my ghost white shoulder. But he pulls it down and shows them the walker bite, which kind of confirms almost everyone's prediction theory that he was bitten at the food bank. He was pulled underwater in last week's episode, when Father Gabriel was taking him there. And so they all kind of start freaking out. Then Bob just starts laughing pretty maniacally, and eventually just gets knocked out by Gareth kicking him in the face. But it's still, Bob is dead at this point, pretty much. But it's still kind of cool seeing him getting that smidgen of satisfaction against the guys who did it to him. Or at least the guys, that brutalized him in that way. So that part was good, and there really wasn't a whole lot of story points going on in this episode. It was all pretty straightforward, but really I really like the focus of this one. And we basically got to see the end of the Terminus story arc for the series. As you guys may have read online before the season started, that the Terminus story would be wrapped up fairly quickly, and it was in this episode. Sorry I already spoiled it for you guys. I forgot to warn you about that. I usually don't warn you, because I kind of assume if you're watching a review that you have seen the episode, because I believe in order to fully discuss and give my thoughts on an episode or a movie, that I should be able to talk about any part of the story that I want, especially the important scenes and important events like that. So I apologize if I spoiled it for you, but just a heads up for the future. And I've been spoiled plenty of times myself, too, with not just this show, but other ones as well, so yeah, it's annoying, but what can you do? It's the internet, man. But anyway, we also did get some good scenes with, eventually Sasha is out there pretty quickly looking for Bob, and they can't find him, and so they go back, and eventually the Gareth and the Terminus guys drop Bob off at the church where they're staring at Father Gabriel anyway. And, they rush outside and, they shoot him into the darkness, but they don't know where they're watching him from. And, they're saying they can get all the medicine they can spare and stuff like that, and try to help him as much as they can. But, of course, that's when Bob shows, our main core group, the walker bite he has. And, Sasha basically asks him why he didn't say so, earlier. Because, and he basically, I'm not wording it correctly, but he basically says that, I didn't want, the final part of my life or whatever to be thinking about the end and stuff like that. He wanted to just, live until he died, you know what I mean? And by lived until he died, I mean, if he had told Sasha and the rest of the group earlier, everything would have been about what's going to eventually happen to him and what are we going to do about that. But since he delayed telling them, everyone was still treating him normally up until this point, and he got some normal interactions with Sasha and before all this shit started going down. And Bob as a character, I'm definitely not a big fan of him. Not that he's poorly acted or anything. I mean, I think the actor who played him did a fair job, a decent, solid job, especially in this episode and a couple others later last season. But I just never found the character to be that interesting. And I always kind of predicted he would die in, within a few episodes in season 5. And I always felt like he was at risk and kind of expendable anyway. And Sasha is too. I really don't like her either. Just personally, my opinion. I actually predicted Bob would die in the season 5 premiere episode No Sanctuary, but he survived miraculously, only for this to happen to him. I did not predict he would die in this fashion, but I do hear that this was Dale's death from the comic books, or at least very similar to it. I actually wish Dale was still alive in the TV series, but let's not get into that right now. So Bob wasn't really a character I cared about too much, so him dying didn't really affect me too much. I wasn't really too upset by it. I didn't really get too much emotion out of me. It was a well done scene. I mean, they brought him in, he was sitting on the couch, which Father Gabriel finally offered him, and Sasha actually thanked him for it instead of, questioning him every step of the way like she was earlier, which they have a right to do, really, because after all the shit they've been through. But, and we got some solid acting from Sasha's actress and Bob's actor. When they were saying their final goodbyes to each other, even Bob pulled Rick in and, thanked him for taking him in and showing him that there was still some good people left in the world they're in now. That was really nice. And yes, even though I don't like Bob and Sasha too much, their final moments together were pretty well done, I'll have to say. And I really appreciate that, again, even though I didn't like Bob's character too much, they stayed true to him and how they represented him as what they represented him as. They stayed true to that until the end of his character. Because even when he was, very close to dying on the couch, he was, trying to play that game with Sasha they were doing an episode or two ago. Like how Sasha would say something negative and Bob would always point out a good thing about it. And he kept on doing that, and she didn't want to, she wanted to be real about the situation, but, Bob said, just humor me. I thought you'd just humor me. So, it was nice to see that Bob really is positive. He's not, really fake at all or anything like that. And Sasha's about to put him down, by, doing that stab through the ear, just through the temple. It's through the temple, not through the ear. Well, I don't know. But Sasha's about to put him down. But Tyrese actually does it himself. And, it's kind of interesting seeing Tyrese doing that because, he couldn't kill Martin from Terminus, in the first episode. But I think he's willing to do this since, he's about to turn into a walker anyway, and it's someone he actually knows, so he understands I just want him to be that. So that was a good moment. And, another big part of this episode is Rick and Abraham. They actually had a pretty big argument. Abraham, wanted to move out there and start heading to Washington, lickety-split. No one says that anymore. But he wanted to get out of there pretty quickly because, he felt Eugene's life was at risk, which it obviously is. And, he thought, we can't really contend with these guys because, something could happen to Eugene and he's supposed to be the savior of humanity and all that. We'll see how well that turns out. But, and, Rick's wanting, to take care of this because of what they did to his group and what they put him through and different things like that, which, you understand and, yeah, you agree with. But, it was kind of a little bit dumb of Abraham to want to go off late at night by themselves with no vehicle to drive around except maybe the bus, but still they'd be walking out there blind with just pretty much Abraham for protection. But, they wanted Glenn and Maggie to go with them. Because I think they do have a certain attachment to them because of them traveling together before they met up with Rick's group again. And Glenn tried to play peacemaker, and the diplomat. He was trying to say, "Oh, we'll," and Tara was also doing this as well. She was trying to say, "Oh, we'll go with you guys as soon as we take care of this, back at the church and things like that. Help us with this, and we'll go with you guys afterwards." And so the group, kind of goes out, and they're, heading back to the elementary school, which they find out is where Gareth and his crew are staying, supposedly. As Father Gabriel tells them about. I'm going to have to wrap up this review pretty quickly, guys. That's going to be one of my shorter ones, but, Father Gabriel had told him about the elementary school. He had known about it, so that proves he actually did live around the area. And we also found out more about Father Gabriel in this episode, How we found out that, why they supposedly, according to him at least, why it says, you'll burn in hell, or you'll burn for this. I think it's carved into the walls outside the church, is because, he would always lock the doors at night, and there'd be screaming walkers all over. He'd hear them outside at night, but he would never let anyone in because he was so scared and things like that. And so, you kind of feel for him a little bit. Even Michonne kind of understands him towards the end. But, so that's how he knows about the elementary school. And Rick and Abraham and a few others go out there to, take out the termites. But then it's kind of an eerie scene. You see Gareth and his men, circling their way around almost at the exact same time. They, just miss each other, so it appears. But, and so Gareth and his men head into the church. And, they know who's left in there because they thought they pulled a fast one and watched who walked out and who didn't to look for him. And, so they know Eugene's there, they know Rosita's there, they know Carl's there, and Tyrese, obviously, Martin's old friend. Martin's a good friend, I think Gareth called him. Because, he obviously knows that Tyrese left him alive. And, so they're just, trying to call him out. "Oh yeah, we won't hurry if you come out now." They're trying to talk to Father Gabriel too. Father, we'll let you go if you come out now. And baby Judith starts crying. Gareth mentioned her as well. And so they're about to start shooting down the doors and storming into the little 2 rooms that are in the church. But then it turns out that Rick and the rest of our group realize that they're coming around to the church already to attack. And so they apparently circled back around, and all of a sudden, Gareth's fingers get shot off. And, then they are forced to drop all their weapons, and you see Rick, slowly walk out of the shadows holding his, silenced gun. And you see Michonne come out, and the rest of them, Abraham and the others. And so they force them to drop their weapons, and, eventually Gareth tries to plead with Rick, saying, you'll never see us again if you let us go now. But Rick just pulls out that red handle machete, the one he mentioned in the premiere, where he said, where Gareth was asking him what was in the bag that he left outside Terminus. He said, "Oh, an AK-47, so on and so on, and a red handle machete, that's what I'm going to kill you with." And it's what Rick did. He basically hacked Gareth apart, as Michonne and the rest of them killed the other termites. So there was that. And so that was all really good. Glenn and Maggie are sort of looking at Rick and the rest of them doing that, "Oh yeah, they think they're going a little bit too far. I didn't realize they were so brutal. How can they be that brutal, But I feel like the termites deserved it, it's kind of justified, especially in the world they live in now and what they do. Yeah, it made sense. And, I really can't talk for too much longer right now, but basically the episode ends with Glenn and Maggie and, leaving with Abraham, Eugene, and Rosita. And, Rick and the rest of them say they're going to wait for Daryl and Carol to come back. And, Abraham actually leaves Rick a map, that shows the route they were taking to Washington. And it says, "Sorry as an asshole, the New World's going to need Rick Grimes." So that was really cool to see. I like that a lot. So it shows that once they meet up again, Rick and Abraham could be a more cohesive unit. And the end of the episode basically leaves you at a cliffhanger with Michonne walking around at night, as she, basically shows Father Gabriel that she can relate to him a little bit, or at least understand him, and why he was so scared, with locking the doors at night and stuff like that. And basically she hears some rustling in the trees and stuff, and Daryl comes out, and And he basically turns and says, "Okay, you can come out. You can come on out now." And you don't see who's behind him. Very early prediction, I think Carol's either dead or she's being held back at wherever they're holding Beth. And I think that next week we'll see mostly a flashback, and we'll see what happens to that. So overall, a really good episode. Season 5 is off to a very solid start. And yeah, it's been a little bit better than the beginning of Season 4 so far. I can't wait to see what happens with Beth, Daryl, and Carol next week. And yeah, I'll catch you guys next time. And peace.